friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a preview of this game right here, as well as a new expansion. And this game is called Keystone North America. You guys might actually recognize it because this is actually the first edition right here. I do own this game and I've played it multiple times, and Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, the publisher of Keystone North America, they are sponsoring today's video, so a huge thank you to them. But they are actually coming out with a second edition of Keystone North America, and they are also coming out with a new expansion for it called the Coastal Expansion. So this is a game, like I said, by Rose Gauntlet Entertainment. It is designed by Jeffrey Joyce as well as Isaac Vega, and they are coming out with a second edition of the game. This is the new box right here with the art. I am going to say it right now, this art is absolutely stunning. This is the same publisher that has done Wild Gardens as well, which is one that I've covered here on the channel, but they have just done some fantastic art. And then this here is the expansion. Sorry for the light. But yes, this is Keystone North America. It is a card placement game. You are drafting cards and creating a ecosystem of different species of animals in hopes to get the most points as possible. It is a competitive game, so you are competing against your fellow biologists in order to create the best ecosystem, like I said. So I am going to give you guys a little bit of an overview of how the game plays, show you all of the components, and show you exactly what the expansion brings to the game as well, just so you can see if Keystone North America, as well as the new expansion, is something that you would possibly want to back, and it's something that you might be interested in. So without further ado, if you guys want to see more about Keystone North America, as well as the new Keystone North America Coastal Expansion, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. I will have all of the links to the crowdfunding campaign, stuff like that, down in the description box if you guys want to go and check that out. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into this preview of Keystone North America 2nd edition. All right, friends, so to give you a little bit of an aim of the game, like I kind of mentioned in the intro, you are going to be competing biologists that are trying to create the best kind of interconnected ecosystem. So you are trying to place out different species of animals that might need different environments and different seasons to live in, different things like that, different temperatures, I guess. And you are trying to create this interconnected ecosystem on your 4x4 board. You're going to be playing a little bit of a Sudoku puzzle, which you guys know how much I love Sudoku puzzles and games that kind of incorporate rows and columns. I've talked about it a ton here on the channel. So yeah, you're going to be drafting these different cards, you're going to be gaining synergy tokens, and then you are going to be using some special abilities. You have some different wild cards, stuff like that, as well as you're going to be doing some researching, all of those things. You also have your own personal objective, and you are, at the end of the game, going to be adding up all of your points for your rows and your columns, and then whoever has the most victory points at the end is going to be the winner. So that is a general overview of how the game plays. Also, the Coastal Expansion brings in some community conservation kind of things, as well as some more tokens, some more cards, different things like that. So we'll get into all of that, but that is a little bit of an aim of the game. We are now going to get into a look at all of the components, which I will say right now, right here, that all of this is prototype. It is in prototype form, so everything is subject to change, and the quality of things is going to be a lot better than what you see here. So yes. First thing you guys will see is these boards. So these are the player boards, which I will actually mention right now. This is a good thing to mention right off the bat. The 2nd edition of Keystone North America, the 1st edition played 1 to 4 players. Keystone North America, the 2nd edition, this base box right here plays 1 to 2 players, and you can play it up to 4 players if you have 2 copies of the game, but I do think that the 1st edition was very popular as a solo game. I will mention that there is a amazing solo mode in the 1st edition that I've experienced. This is the little journal here that you got in the 1st edition, where you have a bunch of different scenarios that you're going to be going through that also has a story tied along with it. So you can actually go through this story and play this, and like some of the mechanisms and rules and stuff change each of the scenarios, and it brings in a really cool aspect of the game. So there is also going to be an additional kind of journal within the expansion as well, where you are, I believe, a biologist that is going to be in a documentary, and you're like going through this story of a marine biologist documentary. So that's fun. But yes, the boards here, you're only going to be getting 2 in this base game. You're going to get your 2 boards. It's a 4x4 grid here. You have your market of cards up here. I will kind of go through when we get into how to play the exact kind of layout of the cards and what everything means on there, but each of the cards is going to be a different species of animal. But you have all the cards up here. You also have the time tracker at the bottom here that you guys can see, depending on the player count. So if you are playing a 2-player game, you'll start on the 5 here. If you're playing a solo game, you'll start on the 4. And then if you are playing more than 2, then you start on the 6 over here. So that is the time track, and that's how you're going to track how long the game is, which I will get into how that goes down and all of those things. You have all of these different tiles here, which these are double-sided, and these are actually skill tokens. So on your turn, you can actually, instead of drafting a species card, you can decide to flip one of these over and do some sort of special ability. And then once you have flipped it over, someone can actually, or if you are playing a solo game, you can decide to flip all of the exhausted tiles back over and get all of the rewards on the other side. Also over on this side, you have the 4 different wild cards. There's going to be 2 of each of the seasons, so 2 spring, summer, fall, and winter, and you can get those throughout the game by paying some synergy tokens and placing them on the board like you would one of the species cards, but they are going to be wild and allow you to score different things a little bit easier than trying to find them within the species. You also have the research/story tokens. So on the one side, you're going to have the research token. It's going to be a little green clipboard. And on the other side, it is a little journal. And these are going to be used in the solo scenarios. Some of the scenarios are going to ask you to like place one of these story tokens on a specific space or on a specific card, and that's going to kind of connect into the story. So those are those tokens. You can research different species as you go throughout the game, and those are going to get you additional points at the end of the game. You also have the synergy tokens, which I will mention in the first edition of this game, there were only 1 type of synergy token where it was a 1 on the one side, and then, oopsie, a 3 on the other side. And that was, I think, one of the complaints for the first edition, is that it was a little bit confusing because there's a possibility that you might accidentally flip over one of your tokens, and you might forget if that token was a 1 or a 3. So now they do have just 1s. It is a 1 on both sides, and then they also do have a 5. So those are the 2 new synergy tokens there. We also have a little envelope here, which is again connected to the solo scenarios. You have some personal objectives, so each player is going to get a personal objective card at the beginning of the game. You're going to have 4 different objectives, and depending on how many of those 4 objectives you are getting, or you get at the end of the game, you're going to get victory points for those. So I believe that is everything for this side, and that's pretty much everything that you get in the base game. I will additionally say that there are 5 more skill tokens or skill tiles here that you can put into the game. You just shuffle up the 10 that are in the base, and then you pick 5 and put those out. So you have some different kind of variations of the tiles to change from game to game. And then as for the coastal expansion, this is an expansion that has different modules that you can play with. So there are going to be some modules that you can play with and decide if you want to have it in the game or not. There are additional skill tokens, so you have another, I believe, 10 skill tokens here as well. They do have the water on the front instead of the green grass, and then they are gray on the back like the base game ones as well, so you can tell the difference between the base game ones as well as the expansion ones. And you can decide to mix and match these, but they do recommend the first time that you do play with all of the expansion tiles instead of mixing and matching, just so you can get familiar with the expansion tiles. The expansion also comes with, I believe, 28 additional cards, bringing in a lot of coastal and like water animals. So you have like otters and whales and different water animals, as well as some additional land animals as well. And then additionally, for the coastal expansion, you have the two main modules of the expansion, one being the community focus module and then one being the conservation center module. So there's two different things that you can add both of them into the game if you do wish, or you can do either or just not include those and just include the additional skill tokens as well as the cards. And then, like I did mention already, there is an all new solo scenario journal that you can play in the expansion as well, with that story of being a marine biologist and being included in a TV documentary and that whole story that you can go into. So yes, I believe that is everything for the aim of the game, as well as all of the components. Like I mentioned, they are prototypes, so keep that in mind. But without further ado, let's get into exactly how Keystone North America plays. I will be going over a quick overview of how it plays. It is already a released game, but there are a few small changes that they've made to the rules for the second edition, so we'll go into that. And then I will tell you all about what the coastal expansion adds to the game. So let's get into that. All right, so getting into exactly how Keystone North America plays, there is one main thing that they have changed in Keystone North America second edition that we'll get into that I feel like is a really good change for them to make. So basically, for setup, every player is going to get their board. So you're going to have your 4x4 grid here. Every player is going to be dealt a personal objective as well. And then depending on player count and like player order, you're going to get some synergy tokens based off of your player order. Someone is going to be the first player, and then based off of that, you're going to go around and give the certain players certain amounts of synergy tokens. Based off of your player count, you are going to place your timer on the time track here. So we are just going to say that we are playing a 2-player game here. Oopsie. And then you're also going to set up the little market here of 6 of the animal cards or the species cards in front of you. And additionally, you're going to have your 5 skill tokens out where every player can see them. Like I said, in the base game, there are 10. You're just going to shuffle up the 10, deal out 5 of those, place them face up where everybody can see them. You're also going to place out the wild cards as well as the research/story tokens, as well as the synergy tokens. And then I believe you are ready to play the game. So in Keystone North America, like I've already mentioned, this is a card placement, card drafting game where you're going to be drafting these cards, placing them into your 4x4 grid, and trying to place them in a certain way that is going to get you the most victory points at the end of the game. So this game is going to be played over a series of rounds, depending on how long it's going to take for the timer to go down. So like I mentioned, in a 2-player game, you're going to start at the 5, and every time that someone uses the skill tokens in a certain way, which we'll get into, the token is going to go down. So we'll get into that, but on your turn, you have 2 different options of what you can do on your turn. You will have a few more options if you are playing with the expansion, but we'll get into that. But for the most part, when you're playing with the base game, you're going to have 2 different options for what you're going to be doing on your turn. Your first option is to look at the little market in front of you of the species cards, and you're going to draft one of those cards. And based off of the card that you draft, you're going to have to spend synergy tokens in order to get that card. So the further to the left that you are drafting, the less synergy tokens you're going to have to spend in order to get that animal. So if I decided I wanted to draft the Arctic fox here, I wouldn't have to spend any synergy tokens because it is the farthest left. But for example, if I did want to go all the way to, let's say here, and get the California condor, I would have to actually spend 4 synergy tokens to do so, because I would have to take my synergy tokens and place 1 on each card going from my left to here, but your guys' right to left, in order to draft this card right here. Once cards have been taken though, you will be replenishing and shifting these over. So the ones that first come out over here that are very expensive when they first come out, they will eventually get over here and be less expensive if they do last until then. And when placing cards onto your board, this is where a lot of the strategic gameplay for Keystone North America comes into play. So let's quickly look at this card right here. This is, like I said, the California condor, and And each animal is going to have the name at the top, and then on the left here is going to be the different like environments or terrain that they are going to like. And this is what you're going to be looking at and wanting to match up with adjacent cards. And each animal is going to have 1 to 4 of these habitats on the left side here. So there are the 4 different types. I'm going to look at this. This is like a little player aid that you get, but this is going to show you the different habitats as well as the different seasons. But the 4 different habitats that you can have on the side is the green, which is forest or woodland, the beigey orange color, which is desert / grassland, which is exactly what this condor is. You also have the wetland / river, which is the purple, and you have Arctic / alpine, which is the blue. So you're going to be looking at the habitats. You're also going to be looking in the bottom right-hand corner. You're going to have a few different icons. So there is going to be the season. So that's going to show you what season that animal prefers or what temperature that animal prefers. This condor here prefers the summer. So you see the summer icon there. And then you also have that this animal is endangered. So if you see a little exclamation point, that means that it's endangered. And then you're also going to possibly have a keystone icon. I don't believe any that are out. Actually, yes. So this Arctic wolf right here does have a keystone little icon here, which these actually allow you to score rows and columns an additional time. So these are really important icons and exactly what the game is called, Keystones. So they're very important icons and good things to have in your ecosystem. But then lastly, a big part of the game is the number at the bottom. And this is actually one of the things that they did change in the rules. So when it comes to placing down on your board, you're going to be looking at the rows and the columns. You are going to want your rows and your columns to either be in ascending or descending order for the numbers. So you are not only going to be looking at the season as well as the habitats, but you also are going to be wanting to put your cards or your species in ascending or descending order. And the main difference between the first edition of Keystone North America and the second edition is that in the first edition, you had to have them be consecutive. So you couldn't go 1, 2, 4, 5. You actually had to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the second edition, they have changed the rule that they just have to be in ascending or descending order. So you could go 2, 4, 5 if you wanted. You could go 1, 3, 4, 5. Any sort of way like that. You could go 5, 3, 2, 1. Ascending or descending. So that is one of the main things that you're going to be thinking about when placing in your 4x4 grid here is the ascending and descending of both the rows and the columns. And then additionally, you're going to be gaining synergy tokens when you place down the card based off of any of the species that are adjacent to the card that you're placing and if they have any matching habitats. So if I placed this California condor here and there was a card beside it and maybe above it that also had the beige, what is the beige? Desert habitat, you would get 2 synergy tokens for matching 2 of the adjacent habitats. So that is what you're going to be thinking about when placing these. And then additionally, you're also, like I mentioned in the setup, you're also going to have your different personal objectives. And these are going to be based off of placement and if you are able to get certain placement things like different season icons in a certain arrangement or the endangered icons. I also did forget to mention there is a tag icon, which I don't think any of these have tag icons, but some of the animals or species do have tag icons as well, which are going to be useful when it comes to these objectives. So this one right here specifically is that you need 4 tag icons somewhere in your ecosystem. This one here is you need 3. I believe that is fall or autumn. You need 3 in a row. This here is spring in an L shape, and then you need 2 endangered species diagonal to one another. So those are the 4 different objectives here, but they're always different depending on the objective card that you get. But yeah, that is one of the things that you can do on your turn. You're going to be drafting one of these species from the market, placing your synergy tokens based off of where that species is, and then placing it on your board, gaining synergy tokens if you are matching habitats, and then keeping in mind the different rows and columns. You're wanting to have them in ascending, descending order, and then you're also wanting to actually connect the different habitats as well. So you're wanting the same habitat in the rows and the columns, along with the ascending and descending number at the bottom. And then the second thing that you can do on your turn is you can use a skill token. So you're gonna look at all of the face up skill tokens. So all of these currently are face up with the green side facing up. You will decide which of the skill tokens you want to use. You will be able to actually do some sort of special ability, and then you're going to flip over that skill token to the other side. So this one here specifically is, I believe you can discard one card from the market, and then you're allowed to move 2 of the cards in your tableau or in your ecosystem. So that is one of the abilities. You would simply flip that over, and then the next person that goes there could actually decide to flip over that exhausted tile. This is where the timer of the game comes into play. So throughout the game, people are going to be using different skill tokens. They're going to be flipping them over. And then once someone decides, hey, I want to flip over all of the exhausted skill tokens, they'll look at all of the gray ones, and they will actually get all of the kind of bonuses or rewards that are on the exhausted skill tokens. Currently, right now, I do have 3 of the skill tokens flipped over to the exhausted side. So a player might decide, hey, I'm going to flip over all the exhausted, get all of these different rewards and flip them all back over, and that would allow other players to then be able to use those special abilities again. And then like I mentioned, this is connected to the timing of the game. So every single time a player decides to flip over all of the exhausted skill tokens, that is when the timer will go down 1 space. Play would continue like this in continuous rounds, either players taking a species card from the middle and placing it onto their board, or deciding to flip over a skill token or flip over all of the exhausted skill tokens, moving the timer down once. This would continue until the timer reached the end, and that would be the end of the game, and all players would count up their points. So for endgame scoring, it is going to be a mixture of a few different things. First thing is players will look at their ecosystem, and they're going to see how many of the personal objectives that they have gotten. Based off of how many objectives they got, 1 to 4, they are going to get victory points based off of that. They're also going to gain victory points per 3 synergy token that they have at the end of the game, remembering that you are going to be gaining these whenever you place down a card and have matching habitats connected. So you do have some synergy tokens at the end. You're going to gain 1 victory point per 3 synergy tokens that you have at the end. And then you're going to be going through all of your rows and your columns. They do have a really, really nice score pad here that goes through all of the different columns, all of the rows, and you're also going to be going through your secret objective, like I mentioned, and then your synergy tokens that you have. So you're going to be going through, and the way that each column and row is going to be scored is based off of how many of the cards that all have the same habitat, and then all are going in either ascending or descending order. They don't have to be consecutive, but they do have to be ascending or descending. You would get 1 point per card that is included in that. So if you manage to get all 4 in a row or a column that were all in ascending or descending order, as well as all having the same habitat, you would gain 4 victory points for that row. But then if you have any of these keystone icons, that would allow you to score that row again. So if you did have a score of 4 and you had 1 keystone, you would actually score another 4 for 8 victory points. And then you could also have another keystone and score another 4 points for a total of 12 for that row or that column. You would go through all of your rows, all of your columns. You'd do your secret objective, like I mentioned, as well as your synergy tokens. You would also gain, if you had any research tokens on any of your species, that would allow you to gain victory points, 1 victory point per research icon or research token that you had as well. And then whatever player had the most victory points at the end of the game would be the winner and the best biologist there is. And that would be everything for the base game, but let's quickly get into everything that the coastal expansion adds to the game. So like I mentioned, you get additional cards, you also get additional skill tokens, and then you also get the solo kind of journal thing as well. And then there's the 2 main modules. So you have the community focus module as well as the conservation center modules. So The first one is the community focus module. So you're gonna have this community focus little board here, or this tracker, and basically you're going to have this little tracker be on one of the different habitat types. So the green, purple, beige, or blue, like I mentioned before with the different habitats on the cards. But this is going to be another way for you to gain more of those research tokens. So like I mentioned before, the only way in the base game to get research tokens is to use those skill tokens and then flip them over to gain the rewards. But the community focus allows you to actually gain more of these research tokens by basically on your turn deciding, instead of getting a card from the market or flipping over a skill token, you can actually decide to either change the focus of the community, so you can actually move the focus to another habitat of your choice, or you can decide to research the community focus. So based off of where the community focus is, you would actually get to research or place down a research token on an animal that has that specific habitat. So for example, if it was on this green or forest/woodland habitat, you would be able to then research that habitat type and put a research token on an animal that had the forest/woodland habitat type. So the community focus module is really bringing in more accessibility to those research tokens and being able to gain more of those. And then also you can play it with the conservation center module. So this comes with probably the most adorable little layering of tiles I have ever seen. Basically what's going to happen is every player is going to start with one of the conservation centers. So it's going to be the bottom of the tiles, or the like first layer of the tile. So you're gonna have this, and basically it's going to represent kind of two things. So it's going to represent one of the habitats and one of the seasons. So for example, this one here is going to be the purple, which the purple is the wetland/river habitat. Or you also have the purple season, which is autumn. So you have those two icons there. And what's going to happen here is on your turn, when you are getting one of the cards from the market, you can actually get a card from the market, and instead of placing it onto your board for scoring for your rows and your columns, you can actually decide to put this into your conservation centers. So I will need this one here. So this one is both actually the purple habitat as well as the autumn season down here. So I could, instead of placing this on my board, I could place it into my conservation center, and it has to have that matching icon, either the season or the habitat, and you would place it into your conservation center. The only thing is the conservation center with this first layer tile is only going to be able to hold one card, but you can actually spend your synergy tokens to add on different layers of the little conservation center. And adding on this second layer will then allow you to add in 2 more cards to your conservation center. And you are going to have to pay synergy tokens, like I mentioned, to add on these layers. I think the first layer is 3 synergy tokens, then the second layer is 5, then 7, then 10. So as you add on more and more of these little layers, allowing your conservation center to hold more of these species until you get to the final layer here. So you're gonna have a total of 5 layers here, and it's going to kind of create this little scene. And I was actually putting this together and displaying them on the table here, and this made me so incredibly happy, because each layer, if you look at the graphics on each of the layers, and as you're adding these different layers, it actually tells a little story. There's like little ducks on this one. There's one where there's a turtle and a lizard, and as you're putting the layers on, they like are getting closer together, and then once you put the like final layer on, the lizard is on the back of the turtle, and it's the cutest thing in the entire world. And I was just having way too much fun layering these. But basically at the end of the game, the scoring for the conservation centers is going to be a little bit of a multiplication scoring. So based off of how many layers you have completed of your conservation center. So for example, if I actually completed all 5 of them, and then let's say the total that you can actually have in your conservation center, if you do have all 5, is going to be 1 plus 8, so you can actually have a max of 9 cards in here. So if I got all the way to the top of this for a total of 5 layers, and let's say I put in 7 of the cards, so I had 7 cards here, and then for the community focus as well as just gaining research tokens, you can actually, instead of putting the research tokens onto cards here, you can put research tokens onto the cards in your community center, and that's actually going to add to the multiplication. So if I had 5 layers, 7 cards, and let's say 3 of the research tokens here in my conservation center, that'd be a total of 10 times 5, I would gain 50 victory points for my conservation center scoring. I feel like that might have been a little bit confusing, but to make it simple, it's basically just how many layers of your conservation center you completed at the end of the game times how many cards and research tokens you had in your conservation center. So those are the 2 modules. Like I said, you can play both of those main modules together. I feel like they would play really well together because obviously the community focus is allowing you to gain more of those research tokens that will then actually get you more victory points for your conservation center. So yes, you're wanting to actually add the research tokens to your board as well as to your conservation center. So there's more that you were wanting to add those research tokens to. So it would be really great to play them together, but obviously you can play them individually as well. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for today's preview of Keystone North America, the 2nd edition, as well as the new coastal expansion. So hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing this, and hopefully you got a good idea if Keystone North America is something that you maybe want to look into, and possibly back over on crowdfunding. They will have the crowdfunding campaign active. When this video goes up, it will be active, so definitely go and check it out. Like I said, I will have links in the description box to go and check that out. A huge thank you again to Rose Gauntlet Entertainment for sponsoring today's video again. I appreciate it very, very much. I will be doing a solo live stream of this one sometime soon, so definitely keep an eye out for that. I love you guys so, so much. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. And yeah, remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.